When it comes time to do the electricals, you can do it a couple of different ways. One is you can put conduit for your light switches up against the wall up here. The thing with that is you've got to remember this timber settles. It will settle down like this. So if you've got a fixed piece of conduit from here down to the bottom and it's not allowed to move up and down the hole, it will bow out as the timber settles. So you make it so you drill a hole down here through your floor, and the conduit must be able to sink into the floor a little bit, so then you don't get your conduit bowing out of the wall when this settles. The other way to do it is to come up through this little space in between here, the 70mm architrave. If you remember before, we had the piece of timber that sits in there. What I've done is trimmed out a little bit of the timber. So I've cut a little edge off, just enough to fit our switching wire up here. So we're going to put 2 switch wires up. We're going to run them up through this hole. And I've come up to 1230 in this case. You can come up, the average height is around about 1150. 1150 in this case got to here, and I didn't want it joining on where the timbers join. So I'm going to put it here, and I've run the hole in at 200mm. So I've got a speed ball, a 20mm speed ball, going straight through there, very carefully, making sure it doesn't bow out the sides, because with timber you'll tend to want to go like this and follow the grain. And then I've put a hole in this way on a bit of an angle, exactly where I want it to go. Using a 12mm speed ball that looks like that, makes a nice beautiful hole. So then our our light switch box will sit off here. Our wires come through here, straight down out here, and then this piece of timber, which I've cut the edge out of, is going to fit back into there, and that's as a stabiliser to keep the wall in line. Now that light switch will go under the cabin, all the way to the back of the cabin underneath, and we're going to have a power board on the back. So I've now run my wires up through the hole, and these are my switch wires through the hole in the wall, and just got them here. I've just tied a knot on that so they don't fall back through the wall. We're going to put our piece of timber back on and tap that in with a hammer. Or your hand. We're now putting our door frame together, and it's quite simple. You can see that this is the top, and the piece with the hinge on, that'll be the front. So what you've got to do is line these two together, and there's already a couple of holes drilled here. So you want to line that in perfectly there. Use 2 of the 100mm silver screws that come with the kit, and screw them straight into there. The same with the bottom. When we look at the bottom, we have our silver piece at the bottom here. Fits perfectly into that groove, like so. And then we have 2 more holes ready to screw our parts together. So let's screw those together, and we'll see how it looks. Our door frame, we're going to put our architrave on, and we can see here that these timbers are laminated. Our architrave is actually going to screw into that 20mm section there, and we can see around here the 20mm section there. That's where our architrave is going to screw onto. It's sometimes a good idea just to mark that line with a pencil, because it is quite faint. And if your eyes are like mine and you need glasses, well, it's a good idea just to make it a thicker mark. It's a good idea just to use your nail gun if you have one, just to tack this piece in place and then come back with screws. You'll have star drive screws which go into here, which are about 40mm long. You start 100mm from the corner, going down on an angle, straight into the solid plastic timber, and you basically average out putting about 5 screws in the vertical side of your door frame. The top part overhangs 30mm like that, and at the bottom the timber goes flush with the bottom. Now, depending on how you've done your base, you may need to cut 20mm off that. What we've done is made our silver piece here sit into this gap nice and neatly, so we're going to have to chop 20mm off that. So now we've got our door architrave just sitting in place, and you see we've cut our little piece out of here. Then we're going to put our other piece on here, but we've left it open just to show you what it looks like. Don't be worried about this spacer up here. This space is there for a reason. When your kit settles down, that space will shrink to about there. Now, whatever you do, do not screw on the outside of this timber into the wall boards. This isn't supposed to be attached to the wall boards. We're making what's called a C-channel, which goes around the outside of the timber. We can put one screw in down the bottom here to hold the corners in firmly, which we'll do in a moment. But don't screw into here unless, well, you don't screw in there at all. On our windows and doors, you don't put any screws on the outside architrave, but we like to put one at the bottom only. Only at the very bottom. Same as your windows, only at the very bottom. If you put screws up further, you will risk settling issues. So what I'm going to do, I've got quite a big screw here. You don't really need one that long, but it's what we have at the moment. And I'm going to screw in here. Now, we saw that push in tight right up to the heart against the edge of the wall. Now that I've got that countersunk there, what we're going to do is pull this one out a little bit, screw the other side, and it's all about making the even space either side. We'll bring the camera around the other side in a moment and show you that. So now we're going to pull it back out, knowing that we've got our nice countersunk edge there, and we're going to go to the other side. What we can see is at the moment this side's really tight and this side's got its space. We're going to even that space up. We're going to put the screw in the pre-sunk hole here, countersink it, and then we're going to just adjust our screws. Now we'll let that one back in. And we're just going to tap this across here. Now we're going to screw it back in, and not too tight, just up to the a little bit further. That's it. Now I'll go and screw the other side. We'll screw the other side in. That's it there, and we'll just tighten this one up a tiny bit. Now we've got an exact even amount of space on both sides. Now we're just going to check it for square and check it for level. So we'll put our level up against the wall here. And there you have it, beautiful. We'll put our square on as well just to make sure. Because if your door frame's square, your doors will fit perfectly. So we're slightly up there a bit. So to move it, we just tap it a bit at the top, tap it over a bit, and put our square up there. Okay, if it isn't perfectly square, you may have to pull your screw out here, pull this in, shrink this in a little bit tighter, and that'll give you a bit more movement. up in the higher section up here. So you can see I'll hit that, goes across, and that's all right. It's sitting square exactly where we want it. So there's no more screws holding it in. So yes, it can move out of square slightly sometimes. If you find that your doors aren't closing properly, you can tap it on one side. But once this side of the architrave goes on, which we're going to do now, that will hold that in quite firmly. So let's put the rest together. So now we've got our pieces tacked into place. We're going to come down about 100mm, slight angle, and about 10mm, or your pinky finger there apart. And you're just going on an angle like this, slight angle. No need to pre-drill these screws, I'll go straight in. And just bring it so the head's just underneath there. Then you evenly space your screws out from there. I like to put 5 in each side, so you can pre-measure it if you're really fussy about it. But this cabin's getting painted anyway. So we just go like that, right around. On the top section, we'll put 4 screws, and down the other side, we'll put 5. And remember, they've got to go into the door architrave, not the wall. Don't go into the wall. So just the door architrave. So when we hang the doors, we're going to swing them out a little bit wide, and we're going to try and line up the hinges. You see here, we just pulled that sleeve off. I'm going to grab the bottom, and we're going to do this together. They're quite heavy, these doors, so just be careful with it. There we go. And then just give it a little wriggle, and she sits in place. Now, let's see if it sits square. That one closes nicely. Beautiful. So that one closes all right. The left one, let's check the left one. Okay, this one's hitting a bit at the door, at the bottom of the door. Why that's doing that is we've purposely moved the hinge in to squash it here a little bit close. See that? This pops down. We've got it in close there, and we've got it a little bit wider here. I've purposely done that so we can show you how this works. So these little sleeves slide up and down, and then you use an Allen key in here. You can get to these two. These two will cause the door to lift up or come down. So if your door's hitting on the ground, you unscrew one, you unscrew this one, that's a locking screw, and then you screw this one, which will lift this up and make a little gap there. However, to get to this one, you either have to take off this architrave or you take off your door. So we're going to take off the door, we're going to pop this one in a little bit, pop the bottom one out a little bit, and then we'll see the door won't hit at the bottom. So we can take this end cap off. You can see it just folds over the top, and you can pull it, put an Allen key in the side there and just pull that out. It is easier to take the architrave off, and we'll do that now. So now we need to put an Allen key in here, which will adjust this in and out. Clockwise, we'll put it out, anti-clockwise, we'll pull it back in. You can use an Allen key, or we've got one of these special tools for it that allows us to pull it in and out easily. Now, by pulling that in and out this way, it allows you to line your doors up so it's the same space at the top as it is at the bottom. It'll make a nice, neat, even, straight line. And what we've also done is we've raised this one up a little bit. So you can see this little sleeve slides down here. The top screw is used for lifting this up. And see that little spacer there? We've lifted the door up a little bit. This screw is for bringing the edge of the door out or back in. And then you simply push this back up, put the other sleeve back on tight, and it looks nice and neat.